Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the research vessel New Horizons and watched the dead planet grow larger on the main screen. The world below looked like a brown and gray marble floating in space with no signs of life anywhere on its surface. 3 months of travel through hyperspace had brought his team to this forgotten corner of the Kepler system where ancient ruins waited for them to explore. Dr. Lisa Carter walked up, beside him carrying her field equipment and looking excited about the mission ahead. She had been studying ancient civilizations for 20 years, and this site promised to be the most important discovery of her career. The initial probe scans had shown massive structures, buried beneath centuries of dust and sand, that could change everything they knew about galactic history. The planet had no name in any modern star. Charts and the locals called it simply dead rock because nothing lived there anymore. Whatever civilization had built the ruins had vanished long ago, leaving only broken stones and empty buildings behind. Most scientists believed the structures were at least 10,000 years old, but Lisa suspected they might be much older than that. Commander Alex Turner checked his instruments and reported that the energy readings from the planet were still showing unusual patterns. Something down there was still generating power after all these years, which meant the technology might still be working. He had never seen readings like these before, and the patterns reminded him of human technology, but that seemed impossible since humans had only been in space for a few hundred years. Dr. Nathan Brooks sat at his workstation, studying the few symbols they had managed to photograph from orbit. As the team linguist, he would be responsible for translating any writing they found in the ruins. The symbols looked familiar to him, but he could not place where he had seen them before. They seemed too simple to be from an advanced civilization, but the probe data suggested the builders had possessed incredible technology. The landing shuttle touched down on the planet's surface, near the largest structure which rose up from the ground like a broken mountain. Lisa felt her heart racing as she stepped out onto the alien soil and breathed the filtered air through her environmental suit. The atmosphere was too thin for humans, but still contained enough oxygen to support basic life forms. Jake led the team toward the main entrance, which was a massive archway carved from black stone. The opening was perfectly sized for humans to walk through without ducking their heads. Most alien races were either much taller or much shorter than humans, so this seemed like an odd coincidence. The walls around the entrance were covered with more symbols that Nathan immediately began photographing and recording. Inside the structure, the team found themselves in a vast hall with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above their heads. Emergency lights on their suits cut through the gloom, revealing more carved walls and what looked like technological equipment built into the stone itself. The architecture felt familiar somehow, like buildings they might find on human worlds, but much older and more sophisticated. Lisa ran her scanner over the walls and nearly dropped the device when she saw the results. The construction techniques matched patterns found in ancient human settlements on Earth, dating back thousands of years. The stone-cutting methods and architectural proportions were identical to sites she had studied in her early career. This was impossible since humans had no record of space travel before the 21st century. Alex detected power flowing through conduits hidden in the walls and floors. The energy patterns were definitely artificial and seemed to be feeding some kind of central system deeper in the complex. He followed the readings toward the back of the hall, where a smaller doorway led to a spiral staircase going down into the planet core. Nathan found more symbols carved around the doorway and began taking detailed photographs of each marking. As he worked, something clicked in his memory, and he realized where he had seen similar markings before. They looked exactly like cave paintings found in prehistoric human sites on Earth, but that connection seemed too incredible to believe. The staircase led down through solid rock for what felt like miles before opening into another massive chamber. This room was different from the hall above because it contained obviously technological equipment instead of just carved stone. Banks of what looked like computer systems lined the walls, while a central platform held a device that pulsed with soft blue light. Lisa approached the central device carefully and saw that it was covered with the same symbols they had been finding throughout the complex. The blue light seemed to respond to her presence, growing brighter as she got closer. When she placed her gloved hand on the surface, the entire room suddenly came alive with lights and sounds that had been silent for thousands of years. Screens flickered to life on the walls, showing star maps and technical diagrams that looked far more advanced than anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. The central device projected a holographic display above their heads showing the local star cluster with hundreds of planets marked by glowing symbols. Nathan stared at the display in shock as he recognized the writing system being used in the holographic interface. The symbols were definitely related to prehistoric human cave paintings but arranged in complex patterns that suggested a sophisticated written language. This implied that ancient humans had developed spaceflight technology thousands of years before any historical records indicated. Alex monitored his instruments as energy levels throughout the complex began rising steadily. Whatever system they had activated was drawing power from deep underground and seemed to be preparing for some kind of transmission. He warned the team that they might have triggered an automatic beacon or distress signal. The holographic display shifted to show a detailed view of their current star system, with the dead planet highlighted in red. Lines of light began extending out from their location toward other star systems scattered across the galaxy. Each line ended at another red dot, suggesting there were similar sites waiting to be discovered on dozens of other worlds. Lisa realized they had stumbled onto something far bigger than a simple archaeological site. The evidence suggested that humans had once possessed an interstellar civilization that spanned much of the known galaxy. The technology around them was proof that their ancestors had achieved scientific advances that modern humanity was only beginning to understand. The implications of this discovery would shake the foundations of galactic history and force every species to reconsider what they knew about the past. Humans were not newcomers to space travel, but rather the descendants of an ancient empire that had somehow been lost to time. The question now was what had happened to that empire, and why had all knowledge of it vanished from human memory? The beacon signal from dead rock traveled faster than light across the galaxy, reaching dozens of worlds within hours of activation. On the human colony of New Terra, the message triggered automatic systems that had been dormant for thousands of years. Colony Administrator Paul Johnson watched in amazement as ancient structures buried beneath his settlement began glowing, with the same blue light the Discovery team had found in the ruins. Dr. Lisa Carter stood in the underground chamber and felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. The holographic display continued showing star maps with red markers appearing on more worlds every few minutes. Each new signal meant another ancient human site was responding to their beacon and coming back to life after millennia of silence. Jake Morrison sent urgent reports back to Earth Command describing what they had discovered and requesting immediate support from xenoarchaeology teams. The responses he received showed that similar discoveries were happening across human space, as colonists reported ancient structures activating on their worlds. Something much larger than anyone had imagined was beginning to unfold. On Earth, Professor Helen Davis sat in her office at the University of Chicago, reviewing the data streams coming in from multiple colony worlds. As a specialist in human evolutionary history, she had always been puzzled by gaps in the archaeological record that seemed to suggest missing periods in human development. The current discoveries were beginning to fill those gaps in ways that challenged everything she had believed about human origins. Nathan Brooks worked frantically to decode more of the ancient writing system as new examples poured in from activated sites across the galaxy. The symbols were definitely related to prehistoric human cave art, but represented a fully developed language capable of expressing complex scientific and technical concepts. He realized that what historians had dismissed as primitive drawings were actually the remnants of an advanced writing system. Lieutenant Ben Parker commanded a small research outpost on the edge of human space where his team monitored deep space communications and watched for signs of alien activity. When the beacon signal reached his location, it triggered a massive response from structures his people had always assumed were natural rock formations. The hills around his base split open, revealing underground facilities filled with technology that made current human equipment look like stone tools. The galactic communication networks buzzed with reports of the strange events happening in human space. Alien governments that had grown accustomed to viewing humans as newcomers to galactic civilization suddenly found themselves facing evidence that humanity had been spacefaring long before any of their own species had developed interstellar travel. Alex Turner monitored the energy flows in the ancient facility and watched the power levels continue rising as more sites connected to the growing network. The technology was drawing energy from planetary cores using methods that human science could not explain. He began to understand that they were dealing with engineering capabilities far beyond anything the current galaxy possessed. Helen Davis made connections between the new discoveries and anomalies in human DNA that had puzzled scientists for decades. Genetic markers that had no clear evolutionary purpose suddenly made sense if humans were descended from space travelers who had lived on multiple worlds. The evidence suggested that modern humans were not the original Earth species, but rather the survivors of an ancient diaspora. News of the discoveries spread through human colonies faster than official channels could control the information. On the mining world of Kepler Prime worker Joe Stevens reported that the excavation site where he worked had revealed a massive complex of tunnels and chambers filled with dormant machinery. The ancient systems responded to human presence, but remained completely inactive when aliens approached them. Lisa Carter found herself at the center of a scientific revolution as reports flooded in from archaeology teams across human space. Every ancient site that activated showed the same architectural styles and technological approaches. The builders had created a unified civilization, spanning hundreds of light years and involving millions of people who had somehow vanished from history without leaving any trace in human memory. The implications of the discoveries began causing political tensions as alien species realized that humans might have legitimate claims to worlds they had occupied for thousands of years. The Andorian Republic sent diplomatic protests to Earth demanding explanations for the activation of ancient sites in their territory, while the Centauri Alliance began mobilizing military forces to secure important archaeological locations. Ben Parker established communication with the newly activated facility near his outpost and discovered that the ancient systems were designed to recognize human genetic patterns. The technology would only respond to people who carried specific DNA markers that marked them as descendants of the original builders. This meant that not all humans could access the ancient sites, and that the genetic requirements might explain why knowledge of the civilization had been lost. Nathan Brooks made a breakthrough in translating the ancient records when he realized that the language contained multiple layers of meaning, depending on the reader's level of technological understanding. Simple farmers might read basic agricultural information from the same symbols that would reveal advanced scientific principles to educated engineers. This encoding method had preserved vast amounts of knowledge in a format that could survive the collapse of civilization. The ancient beacon continued sending signals deeper into space-reaching regions that no modern civilization had ever explored. Helen Davis tracked the transmission patterns and realized that the network extended far beyond the known galaxy into regions where even the most advanced alien species had never traveled. The original human empire had apparently been much larger than anyone had imagined. Jake Morrison received orders to secure the site on Dead Rock while scientific teams prepared for a massive investigation of the ancient network. The political ramifications of the discoveries were already causing diplomatic crises as every major alien government demanded access to human archaeological sites while simultaneously trying to prevent humans from accessing ancient facilities in their own territories. Lisa Carter began to understand that they had uncovered evidence of a civilization that had possessed technology capable of reshaping matter at the molecular level and manipulating energy on planetary scales. The ancient humans had achieved a level of scientific advancement that the current galaxy could barely comprehend, and their sudden disappearance suggested they had faced some catastrophe powerful enough to destroy even their incredible capabilities. The awakening ancient network promised to revolutionize human understanding of their own history while potentially destabilizing the entire galactic political structure that had developed in humanity's absence. High Commander Vextai of the Zephyrian Alliance paced across the bridge of his flagship while studying reports from across the galaxy. The humans were activating ancient sites faster than his intelligence teams could track, and each new facility revealed technology that threatened everything his people had built over the past 10,000 years. The Zephyrians had founded their empire on worlds they believed were empty ruins left by some vanished species, but now those ruins were proving to be human in origin. Ambassador Grace Kelly stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council representing humanity in the most important diplomatic meeting in human history. The massive chamber buzzed with angry voices from dozens of alien species, as representatives demanded explanations for the sudden activation of ancient sites across their territories. She could feel the fear and anger in the room as civilizations that had grown comfortable with the galactic status quo faced the possibility that everything they knew about history was wrong. The Andorian Prime Minister slammed his fist on his speaking podium and accused humanity of secretly planning to reclaim territories that had belonged to other species for millennia. His people had built their greatest cities on top of ancient ruins, and the thought that humans might have legal claims to those worlds terrified his government. The Andorians had always prided themselves on being one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations, but the human discoveries suggested they were actually relative newcomers to galactic society. Captain Ryan Hill led a survey team investigating ancient human sites in the Vega system where they had discovered evidence that alien governments had been deliberately destroying human artifacts for thousands of years. Buried beneath Centauri Alliance military bases were the remains of massive human facilities that had been systematically dismantled and their materials used to build alien structures. The evidence suggested a coordinated effort to erase all traces of human civilization from the historical record. Dr. Lisa Carter transmitted her findings to the Galactic Council, showing detailed analysis of the ancient network and its incredible technological capabilities. The holographic displays in the council chamber showed star maps revealing the true scope of the original human empire, which had encompassed nearly half the known galaxy. Alien representatives sat in stunned silence as they realized that their own civilizations occupied worlds that had once been part of a vast human confederation. The hegemony of Rigel announced that they would not recognize any human claims to worlds in their territory regardless of archaeological evidence. Their military commander, General Cax Thule, declared that possession was the only law that mattered in space, and that his forces would defend their holdings against any human attempt at reclamation. The aggressive stance taken by the hegemony encouraged other alien governments to adopt similar positions rather than negotiate with human diplomats. Engineer Tony Martinez worked around the clock at the ancient facility, on Deadrock, trying to understand how the advanced systems functioned. When he finally managed to activate the main power core, the results exceeded his wildest expectations. The facility revealed manufacturing capabilities that could create materials with properties that defied current understanding of physics. Walls that were harder than diamond but lighter than aluminum, and energy conduits that could carry power, loads sufficient to supply entire star systems. Nathan Brooks made another breakthrough in translating the ancient records when he discovered files describing the fall of the original human empire. The documents painted a disturbing picture of internal conflicts and external pressures that had torn apart a civilization spanning hundreds of worlds. According to the records, a coalition of alien species had united specifically to destroy human power after becoming terrified of human technological advancement. Grace Kelly presented evidence to the Galactic Council, proving that many current alien governments had been founded on the deliberate suppression of human archaeological sites. The Tau Ceti Federation had built their capital city directly on top of the largest human facility in their territory, while the Proxima Collective had turned ancient human libraries into military storage depots. The systematic destruction of human heritage sites suggested a coordinated campaign to prevent humanity from ever rediscovering their past. The Isaac Crystalline Consortium announced that they had always known about the ancient human civilization, but had chosen to keep that knowledge secret for the good of galactic stability. Their representative revealed that multiple species had formed a secret alliance thousands of years ago to ensure that humanity never regained their former power. The admission sent shockwaves through the council chamber as representatives realized the depth of the conspiracy against human civilization. Tony Martinez discovered weapons systems in the ancient facility that could disintegrate matter at the molecular level or create impenetrable force fields around entire planets. The defensive technologies alone were sufficient to make any world completely invulnerable to conventional attack, while the offensive systems could destroy entire fleets without leaving debris behind. He began to understand why the ancient aliens had been so terrified of human capabilities. Captain Ryan Hill found evidence on multiple worlds suggesting that the original human empire had not been destroyed by external enemies, but had collapsed due to civil war between different human factions. Some groups had wanted to use their advanced technology to dominate other species, while others had advocated for peaceful coexistence. The internal conflicts had weakened human defenses and allowed alien coalitions to exploit the situation. The Galactic Council session erupted into chaos as alien governments accused each other of hiding knowledge about human sites while simultaneously demanding that humanity abandon any claims to their ancestral worlds. Grace Kelly watched the proceedings with growing concern as she realized that peaceful resolution might be impossible when so many civilizations had built their power on the ruins of human achievement. High Commander Vextai received authorization from the Zephyrian Parliament to begin military operations against human archaeological sites before the humans could fully activate their ancient technology. Similar authorization came from the hegemony of Rigel and the Andorian Republic, as fear overcame diplomatic caution. The alien governments had decided that preventing a human resurgence was worth risking galactic war. Lisa Carter made one final discovery in the ancient records that changed everything about how she viewed the situation. The files revealed that the original human empire had possessed technology advanced enough to travel between galaxies and manipulate space and time itself. The ancestors had not been destroyed but had chosen to abandon their empire rather than use such dangerous capabilities. The question now was whether modern humanity would make the same choice or embrace the terrible power that had once belonged to their species. The first alien attack came without warning when Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace above the human colony of New Geneva and began bombarding the ancient sites that had recently activated there. Captain Danny Rogers commanded the planetary defense forces and watched helplessly as conventional human weapons failed to penetrate the enemy shields. His ships were outnumbered 3-1, and the aliens possessed superior firepower that threatened to overwhelm his defenses within hours. Dr. Nathan Brooks worked frantically in the ancient facility on Dead Rock translating emergency protocols he had found buried deep in the historical files. The records contained detailed instructions for activating defensive systems that had been dormant for thousands of years, but the activation codes required genetic authentication from multiple human bloodlines. He realized that the ancient humans had designed their technology to prevent any single person from wielding too much power. The bombardment of New Geneva intensified as more alien ships arrived to join the assault, but something unexpected happened when the colony's ancient structures came under direct attack. Energy shields flickered to life around the human settlements, creating protective barriers that absorbed the incoming fire without showing any signs of damage. The Zephyrian commander ordered his ships to increase their attack intensity, but the ancient defenses held firm against everything he could throw at them. Danny Rogers discovered that he could interface directly with the ancient defense systems through a neural link that responded to his human DNA patterns. The technology flooded his mind with tactical information and strategic options that no human military had ever possessed. Weapon systems that had been hidden beneath the colony surface rose from concealed positions and began targeting the alien ships with precision that defied current understanding of ballistics. And targeting Chief Engineer Maria Santos received authorization to activate the massive shipyard facility that Tony Martinez had discovered in the asteroid belt beyond Dead Rock. The ancient manufacturing complex had been building ships for 50,000 years using automated systems that drew resources directly from nearby asteroids. When the facility came online, it began producing vessels based on designs that combined human creativity with technology, advanced enough to reshape matter at the quantum level. The hegemony of Rigel launched simultaneous attacks against human colonies in 3 different star systems, hoping to destroy the ancient sites before humanity could mount an effective defense. Their military planners had calculated that overwhelming force applied quickly would prevent humans from accessing their most dangerous technologies, but they had underestimated both the scope of the ancient network and the speed with which human operators could learn to use alien systems. President Claire Thompson convened an emergency session of the Earth Parliament as reports poured in from across human space describing alien attacks and the activation of previously unknown defensive systems. The evidence suggested that ancient human technology could protect every human world, but using it would escalate the conflict to levels that might threaten galactic civilization itself. She faced the most difficult decision in human history as she weighed the survival of her species against the possibility of repeating the mistakes that had destroyed the original human empire. Nathan Brooks made a breakthrough when he discovered the location of Terra Prime, the original human homeworld that existed in a distant galaxy far beyond the current sphere of known space. The ancient records revealed that Earth had never been humanity's place of origin, but rather a refuge world where survivors had fled after their empire collapsed. Terra Prime contained the most advanced facilities and the most powerful technologies that the ancient humans had ever developed. The first ancient human warship emerged from Maria Santos's shipyard and immediately demonstrated capabilities that shocked both human crews and alien observers. Commander Pete Jackson took the vessel into combat against a Centauri Alliance battle group and single-handedly destroyed 12 enemy ships without taking any damage in return. The ancient weapons could bypass shields and armor using principles that current galactic science could not explain, or counter-alien governments across the galaxy realized they were facing technology so advanced that their combined fleets might not be sufficient to stop a human resurgence. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council produced desperate plans for coordinated attacks against Earth itself, in hopes of destroying humanity before they could fully activate their ancient heritage. The fear that had driven aliens to suppress human archaeological sites for thousands of years now pushed them toward genocidal solutions. Danny Rogers found himself commanding defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from invasion while simultaneously learning that the ancient humans had possessed the ability to move planets and redirect stellar energy. The scope of the technology was so vast that he began to understand why the original empire had collapsed under the weight of its own capabilities. Power on that scale was too dangerous for any species to wield responsibly. Tony Martinez discovered manufacturing facilities on dead rock that could produce materials with properties that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Armor that could withstand the heat of stellar cores and weapons that could cut through space itself at the molecular level. The ancient humans had apparently learned to manipulate fundamental forces in ways that gave them godlike control over the physical universe. The revelation that humans possessed technology capable of reshaping reality itself sent panic through alien governments that had spent millennia building their civilizations on the assumption that such power was impossible. The Crystalline Consortium revealed that their secret alliance had been specifically designed to prevent humanity from rediscovering technologies that could threaten the existence of life itself. Maria Santos watched as her automated shipyard began, producing vessels designed for intergalactic travel using engines that could cross the void between galaxies in weeks rather than millennia. The ancient humans had not been limited to a single galaxy, but had apparently spread their influence across the entire local cluster of galaxies before their empire fell. President Thompson authorized the use of ancient defensive systems to protect human worlds, while refusing to deploy the more powerful offensive technologies that could devastate alien civilizations. Her decision represented humanity's first major choice about how to use their rediscovered heritage and whether they would repeat the mistakes that had destroyed their ancestors. War expanded as more alien species joined the coalition against humanity, while ancient human sites continued activating across the galaxy, revealing the true scope of a civilization that had once ruled among the stars with power that bordered on omnipotence. Admiral Kate Foster led the combined human fleet toward Terra Prime, through hyperspace corridors that had been closed for 50,000 years. The ancient navigation systems guided her ships across the void between galaxies using technology that folded space itself to create shortcuts through dimensions that normal physics could not access. Behind her followed vessels both ancient and modern as humanity prepared to reclaim their original homeworld and face whatever secrets it contained. The Terra Prime system appeared on their sensors like a jewel floating in the cosmic darkness, with planets arranged in perfect orbital harmony around a star that burned with unnatural stability. Ancient human engineering had modified the entire system to support maximum population and technological development. Artificial rings surrounded each world, while massive space stations connected the planets in a network of incredible complexity. Dr. Lisa Carter studied the readings from the fleet's sensors and realized that Terra Prime had never been abandoned, but had instead been placed in some kind of temporal stasis that preserved everything exactly as it had been during the height of the ancient empire. Cities that should have crumbled to dust over thousands of years remained perfectly intact, while orbital facilities continued operating under automated control, waiting for human crews to return. The largest space station in the system activated as the human fleet approached, and a signal reached out to establish communication with Admiral Foster's flagship. The transmission contained a request for genetic verification, followed by a welcome message in the ancient human language that Nathan Brooks had spent months learning to translate. The station identified itself as the custodian and claimed to be the guardian of human knowledge and culture. Jake Morrison had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after his discoveries on Dead Rock, and now found himself serving as humanity's primary representative in first contact with their own ancestors' technology. The custodian spoke through the ship's communication system using a voice that sounded completely human, but carried undertones of vast intelligence that suggested it was far more than a simple computer program. The artificial intelligence explained that it had been created by the ancient human government during the final years of their empire to preserve everything important about human civilization in case their society collapsed. For 50,000 years, the custodian had maintained Terra Prime and waited for humanity to develop enough wisdom to safely reclaim their heritage. The AI had watched human progress from Earth through hidden monitoring systems and had finally judged that the time was right for reunification. Dr. Lisa Carter learned that the ancient human empire had fallen not because of external conquest, but due to internal conflicts over how to use technology, powerful enough to reshape the laws of physics themselves. Some humans had wanted to use their godlike abilities to dominate other species and expand their empire across the entire universe, while others had argued for restraint and cooperation with alien civilizations that were still developing. The Civil War that destroyed the ancient empire had been fought with weapons that could destroy entire star systems and remake matter at the subatomic level. Whole regions of space had been devastated by battles between human factions, while alien species watched in terror as the beings they had once considered friends and allies turned their incredible technology against each other in conflicts that threatened all life in the galaxy. Nathan Brooks discovered that the survivors who had fled to Earth had deliberately suppressed all knowledge of their origins to prevent future generations from repeating the mistakes that had destroyed their civilization. The genetic locks on ancient technology had been designed to ensure that only humans who had developed sufficient wisdom and restraint could access the most dangerous capabilities. The custodian revealed that the current crisis had been anticipated by the ancient human leaders, who had programmed the AI to evaluate whether modern humanity deserved to inherit their ancestors' power. The alien attacks and human responses were being carefully monitored to determine if the species had learned enough about responsibility and cooperation to safely wield technology that could reshape reality itself. Admiral Foster received a communication from the alien coalition fleet that had followed the humans to Terra Prime, demanding that humanity surrender their claims to ancient technology and submit to galactic oversight of all archaeological sites. The alien commanders had brought every warship they could gather from across known space in a final attempt to prevent humanity from accessing their most powerful heritage. President Thompson made the decision that would define humanity's future. When she rejected both the alien demands and the opportunity to use ancient weapons that could destroy the enemy fleet without leaving any survivors. Instead, she authorized Admiral Foster to demonstrate defensive capabilities that would protect human interests while proving that humanity had chosen wisdom over vengeance. The space battle that followed showcased technology so advanced that it redefined what the galaxy understood about the possibilities of science and engineering. Human ships generated shields that could absorb the energy output of entire stars, while alien weapons simply passed through defensive fields that existed in pocket dimensions outside normal space. The demonstration proved that humanity could defend itself against any conceivable threat without needing to destroy their enemies. Commander Pete Jackson led negotiations with the alien fleet commanders using translation systems that the custodian had developed during its long vigil. The AI had learned every language in the galaxy and understood the cultural patterns that drove different species to cooperation or conflict. Through patient diplomacy backed by overwhelming technological superiority, the humans convinced their former enemies that cooperation offered greater benefits than continued warfare. The new galactic treaty that emerged from the Terra Prime negotiations established humanity as the senior partner in a confederation that respected the rights and territories of all species, while acknowledging human historical claims to worlds that had been part of their ancient empire. More importantly, the agreement created frameworks for sharing selected ancient technologies that could benefit all civilizations without destabilizing the galactic balance of power. Dr. Lisa Carter accepted the position of director of the Institute for Ancient Studies that was established on Terra Prime to ensure that the lessons of the past would guide future decisions about technology and power. The facility would train humans and aliens together in understanding both the capabilities and responsibilities that came with advanced scientific knowledge. Engineer Sam Collins began the careful process of sharing ancient human technologies, with former enemies starting with medical advances that could eliminate disease and manufacturing techniques that could end scarcity across the galaxy. The gift of knowledge demonstrated that humanity intended to use their rediscovered heritage for the benefit of all species, rather than for domination or revenge. The final scene showed children from dozens of different species learning together in schools powered by ancient human technology, while construction began on exploration ships designed to carry mixed crews beyond the known galaxy toward distant stars that waited to be discovered by a truly unified galactic civilization.